for tuning in. Welcome to another episode of Lit Happens Prince Albert. I'm Kara Stelmaschuk, and joining me today is Terry Chamberlain and Esther Chamberlain. Thank you both very much for coming in.
Great to be here.
So I've got some of your books in front of me here, and I can't help but notice there's sort of a agricultural theme that seems to be running through. So Terry, let's start with just where you came from. Where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like?
I was raised on a homestead farm. My dad took it in 1931 north of Snowdon, and I was born just 7 years later. So it was pretty primitive kind of living at that time. And I eventually went into teaching, and I was a teacher for 33 years, teaching and training. And I farmed for 13 of those same years in partnership, and I retired actually 28 years ago from my full-time job. And I did quite a bit of farming again for another 17 years, working for my brother. And I started writing pretty much the day I retired from teaching. I picked up a pencil and got at it. So.
Wow, so what spurs that on? I'm done working and now I'm going to go diving into something else.
I guess I always wanted to write, but teaching, taking teacher training, raising a family, and sometimes farming at the same time, you don't have time for it. I did a lot of my composing though while sitting on the tractor going around the field. And I could, so it was something I had waited for an opportunity to do all my life. So when I retired, I quit farming and retired within a few months of each other, my first round of farming. So I got right to it then.
So, and you kind of jumped into columns, writing for CBC and publications and that kind of thing. What brought you that direction?
Well, the very first thing I did when I retired, I wrote a book. I can't even remember the name of it now, but it was a satire about the Canadian farmer, anthropological study of the Canadian farmer. Just a funny, it was supposed to be funny.
You thought
it wasn't apparently the publishers didn't think it was as funny as I did, because they I don't know what's the matter with them, but they didn't seem to see the genius in it. So then I started writing columns, and actually I robbed quite a bit of the material out of the book for the columns. And I got turned down in one or two magazines, and then I applied to CBC, and they picked it up right away. So I did 28 columns for CBC Radio in 1990 and 91.
And then you jumped into other publications as well. You've contributed to the Saskatoon Sun and others.
Yes, when I finished with CBC, then I always wanted to get into print. And Rural Roots just started up in 91, and I immediately sent them a copy of my columns, and they picked it up right away. So I was in probably about the third issue of Rural Roots beginning. Wow. And was in it right up until this past September, so 25 years plus. November.
Excellent. So first book we have here, which one of these came out first?
The first one was ABCs of Farming.
Okay, so tell us about this one.
Well, in my columns, I had done a bit of you would call it excerpts out of a dictionary. I had read a story about how little urban people know about farming these days. So I wrote this. Here's a dictionary for urban people to know farm language, except it wasn't serious at all.
Were you playing a joke on urban people?
Yeah, that's not hard.
Ouch. And so when did this book come out?
1999.
99, excellent. And then that lit into, well, fact check with Esther, was it 1999?
No, it was right.
Okay, good.
It's right.
And then the next one is ABCs of Retirement.
Yes, well, the farming one went really well. It went into 5 printings right within, well, it went into about 3 printings in the first year. And eventually 5 printings, and it's still selling. Not great anymore, of course, but we still sell a few every year. And that was published by Thistledown Press. And they were very happy with that, of course, and so they asked me to do another ABC book. So I figured the baby boomers were getting around to retiring by then, so I did the ABCs of retirement. And in the same style, don't believe anything you read in it.
So who are we playing a joke on with that one then?
Baby boomers. I've always been anti-baby boomer because I was jealous of them. I missed them by 8 years, you see. Esther made it into the baby boomers.
Being much younger, I just barely made the baby boomer.
So so I guess you'd say that's why I got into it.
Excellent. And so third book is called Stories in the Dirt, and I know this has to have ties to your agricultural roots.
Yeah, actually it's just named after one of the columns. It was Esther's idea to name it that. But actually I made sure, since people knew that I came from a rural background, and I started out writing mostly rural stuff, though it branched out from there. But that's why I subtitled it "And Other Rural, Urban, Universal, and Comic Themes," because first of all, it's a bit more serious than the other two books. There's still a lot of whimsical stuff in it, but there's also a lot of opinionated things and stories about just about any kind of topic you can think of about.
Okay, so this is like a collection of short reads then. It's actually
just about 200, actually I think 192 of the columns I had written in this book, and a few new material too.
You updated.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Would you mind reading one for us?
I could, I guess. I'll maybe read you, just to give you an idea how different they are, I suppose. I'll read you one out of the ABCs of Farming.
Sounds good.
So this is under the S, sheep. A farm and ranch animal which looks like a huge Q-tip with legs and whose purpose in life is aimed at becoming, either a sweater or a plate of mutton chops. Baby sheep are called lambs, females are called ewes, males are called rams. If you have more than one ram on your farm, of course, they must take U-turns. So that's
Nasty, eh?
So just to show you that I can be serious.
So we're going for a contrast here. Okay, I got you.
I'll just read you.
short.
I'll just read you a paragraph from a column I wrote. I'm quite into politics, and I really believe everyone should be interested in it. So I'm always disappointed at the low turnout for elections. So this was after 2003 Saskatchewan election, and I ask people why they didn't vote, and you hear all different kinds of excuses. So I took about 6 of those excuses and gave my opinion of them. I'll just read you one of them.
Great, sounds good.
One of their big excuses is this: it's disgusting the way the parties fling mud at one another at election time. Well, my comment, no, it's not. In most of the world, for most of history, factions seeking power have flung at their rivals not mud, but spears, arrows, rockets, bombs, battleships, warplanes, tanks, shells, and missiles. That's disgusting. Next time a politician says something that offends your feelings, remember, his predecessors might have hurt a lot more of you than that.
Wow. Oh, I like that. That's a really good. I'm going to remember that one, and I'm going to use that one because, yeah, you always hear that excuse for not voting, which just seems ridiculous to me. But everyone's got their reasons. So now I have a question for Esther. I'm going to bring you into the conversation here now. And what's it like to be married to a writer, the writer's wife, the coach, the promoter, the task manager? What's that been like?
Well, it's really interesting for one thing. I do all the planning for our trips, and I've done, well, for instance, this book we self-published, and I set every page up, and he would write the stuff and I'd print it out or type it up and write it out. Yeah. And we've gone all over Saskatchewan. I kind of learned from Thistledown when they were, you know, when we first started, they kind of helped us, and then I just kind of took over. They were done with us and I just kept going. So we traveled every part of Saskatchewan. We went into Manitoba and Alberta, and it was really interesting too.
Yeah, there's been
You get to
very
know
few
so many
communities we
people.
missed in Saskatchewan.
You get to
That's
know a lot of people. Every time you go to a reading, you meet somebody that there's an interest, eh? And I really like that. And then we also got into doing, we both do singing a little bit. So we got into doing singing and signing at seniors clubs.
Nice.
So that's been really interesting too. Yeah.
Very interesting.
But it keeps me busy.
So you have a fan right here. Biggest fan. And fact checker, by the way, because I already know that for a fact. So what got you into writing then? Like when, not just the retiring and finally having time and it's something you always
I
wanted to do.
blame it on Kellogg's and Nabisco. When I was a little kid, about 3 years old, I wanted to know what all those marks were on the boxes at the table at breakfast time. And my parents explained it to me, and my mother was a teacher and showed me how to sound words out. And I fell in love with words almost immediately. So I've been an inveterate reader ever since, and I always tried writing even when I was a little kid. I wrote lots of comic strips, mostly.
Nice. Yeah.
But, and I say, as an adult, I never knew anybody who had any connection with writing whatsoever, so I decided to forget about it and get into something practical to make a living with. But I always still longed to do it, and finally waited till I was in my 50s and retired from full-time work.
Nice. So any favorite writers that to this day you'll always...
Oh yes, yeah, a lot. There's Mark Twain. I have to say William Shakespeare. I was a English teacher, so Shakespeare is a favorite of mine. I really like Dickens. For more modern writers, there's Pierre Berton, there's Farley Mowat.
I'll just say one of the things that we did while we were traveling, not just for the books, but anytime I read books to him as he drives, and I've probably read, sorry, I've probably read, I'd say 100 books to him.
Wow.
Passes time, that's neat.
Nice. Okay, so and any future plans? Is there another book coming out? Do you got any ideas kicking around?
I have no immediate plans, no. I do want to get into writing again, but we're kind of busy with music right now. And when we're done with that, we're trying to get a CD ready. When we're done with that, I'll start looking again for something to write. I write for Folklore magazine now and again in the senior paper, but that's about all for the last few months.
Okay.
I'm trying to convince him that he should put more columns into another book. So I might win that one yet.
Absolutely, it sounds like a great idea. And so for everyone at home watching right now, where can people find these books?
Okay, Artisans Gallery on Main Street,
Okay, yeah.
Central Avenue, they are selling them, and they're going to be moving right away too, eh?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and Northside has it at their antique store.
Okay.
Melfort Mall has it at Mel City Florists. McNally Robinson in Saskatoon. Robertson's Trading in Larange, and many, many, many places in between.
Choiceland Co-op corner is a really
Okay.
good seller there.
Yeah.
Excellent, great. Well, and thank you both for coming in. Really, really appreciate it. And good luck with all the future plans, including the CD. Thank you very much for tuning in to Lit Happens. And if you'd like to watch some more episodes, just go to shawtv.ca.